Hello and welcome to this video on AI detection in writing. I am going to take a few moments to lead you through my thoughts on AI and how I think of it in terms of your essay writing in my classes. I teach several different types of classes that have essay components, and so I'm going to keep this video kind of general to make sure that it applies to all of those different types of assignments. If you have more particular questions about our type of essay, please feel free to ask. I'm happy to chat about any of this in more detail. So I broke this down into 3 different questions. First, how will my essay be checked for AI? Second, how will I know if my essay had a positive AI report? And third, what happens if my essay has a positive AI report? All right, first step, how will my essay be checked? We will be using Turnitin, but importantly, this is not separate from Canvas. Our Turnitin tool is actually embedded into our Canvas assignment. So instead of creating a new account for Turnitin or anything like that, you'll just be going through our regular Canvas assignment, and there will be a button towards the bottom of the instructions, which will give you a new window that you'll submit your essay through. Once you do that, Turnitin is going to run 2 different reports. The first report is a similarity report. You most likely will not see this, but there's a chance you could. All right, so the similarity report is just about how similar your essay is to other things in the database of Turnitin, other online resources, or other student papers. I will share a quick story with you, and that's that one time years ago, I had a student get 100% on a similarity report. When I looked into it further, I saw that that student had resubmitted another essay that a student from the previous year had written, right? So they took another student's work and submitted it as their own. I share these stories. I like to be transparent about this stuff because I want students to understand why instructors use these sorts of tools. It's really to uphold the integrity of the assignment, right? I want my essays and my grades that I assign to be meaningful. And if students are just, have an easy way to submit other people's work, unfortunately, that really affects everybody because the grades aren't as meaningful at that point. So it's really just to keep everyone academically honest. But nowadays, the similarity report isn't a problem anymore, thanks to AI. So the other kind of report that you will not see a score for is for AI. Instructors can see this, no one else can. The reason why the similarity report might be visible to you is because there's an option that instructors click to allow students to see that or not allow them to see it. I try not to, just because sometimes students think that they're seeing the AI report, but they're not, and it can be a little confusing. All right, so one of the main questions that I get, understandably, is that students are really worried about false positives. If I were a student right now learning how to write in this age of AI, I would be worried about the same thing. In my experience over the past 2 years, right, I've talked to a lot of students about this. I've dug into a lot of AI reports and so forth, and I've come to the conclusion, at least for now, that AI or false positives are actually incredibly uncommon. There are very few cases, maybe just a handful over the past couple years, which would mean probably hundreds of essays and AI reports that I've looked through. There are very few cases where I actually think it's a false positive. All right, why do I think this? One of the main reasons why I am unconvinced that false positives are like a thing is that when students have a positive AI report, I almost always ask them to rewrite and resubmit the essay. So let's say a student has like 40% AI. I'll tell them about it, and I'll talk in just a moment about like what we're going to do if that happens, but I'll tell them about it. I'll ask them to rewrite it, and almost always it comes back to me totally clean, like no problems, no AI. That tells me that like the student probably knew where AI was used and how it was used and is able to just like avoid it by not using it. There is another reason why I am skeptical of there being, any like significant number of false positives. And that's that in the cases where students really seem perplexed and they're like, I swear I didn't use AI, this is a false positive, students start to think about like, what is it about my writing style? They might think, oh, I just write like kind of robotic, or I don't have emotion in my voice, or I like to use em dashes or things like that. Let me just tell you, I see lots of different styles of writing, and there's lots of like really well-written, organized papers that like might seem a little robotic that do not get flagged for AI. And so what happens in these cases where the student honestly, like legitimately, I believe that they're confused about like how it happened because they really don't think that they used AI. We'll sit down for a conference and they lead me through their writing process, not in an interrogation sort of way, but in a really like troubleshooting sort of way, like what is going on here? And almost every single time, like maybe a couple cases where this hasn't happened, we pinpoint where the AI did seep into their writing process. They didn't realize it was AI. They might have accepted a couple suggestions from, AI-powered grammar check or something like that. They didn't realize it was AI-powered because a couple years ago, none of this stuff was AI-powered. But these days, everything is AI-powered. It's insidious. It's everywhere. It's really difficult to avoid it. All right, so those are the reasons why I'm very skeptical about false positives. As you'll see on the next screen, though, if there is a false positive, like we're just kind of troubleshooting anyways, and this is not like a thing that you need to stress over, that like your whole of your academic career is going to be ruined or something because of a false positive for Turnitin. So I encourage you just to not spend much time thinking or worrying about false positives. Just do your best to avoid using AI in your work. All right, so when I've had these discussions with students, here's the sorts of things that I find. When I hear about the writing process of students who got positive AI reports, almost always it's one of these two. It's either that they used Grammarly. I'm telling you, this is all the time. If you're using Grammarly, Turnitin is gonna ding you for that, right? It's gonna come up with a positive AI report. If you're using Google Docs, be very careful. Almost every time that I talk to a student in the past semester or two where they have a positive AI report, first question I ask them, what writing processor did you use? Google Docs. All the time. And sometimes it's a mix between Google Docs and like a Grammarly extension embedded into it. And then like Turnitin loves that. It's like, yay, close to 100% probably. Please be careful with that. Google Docs automatically puts on their Smart Compose option. I heard this from students and I looked at it myself and mine was turned on. I certainly never turned that on. I have directions in our AI guidelines to turn that off. I highly suggest just using something else aside from these two, just because I hear so many students that use this and get dinged for AI. So be very careful with that. When you are using Google Docs, if it's suggesting a way to finish your sentence or how to restructure the words in your sentences, that's AI powered. All right, so I don't think that people really realize this. I wouldn't have really thought about it that much until I started hearing from students that that's what they were using, and then I see that they're getting high AI detection in their essays. This is another one that I hear from time to time. Google Translate. I have so much respect for students who take this class and are not native English speakers. I think it's amazing. I could never take a college course in another language. I do not have the skills for that. And so I have a lot of respect for students who do that. And I can imagine that it's very frustrating to feel like you could write a beautifully worded essay in your native language, and then you write it in English, and because it's not your native language, it might, maybe it's your second, third, fourth language or something like that. Amazing. But I can imagine that it can be a frustrating process not to feel as articulate in that essay that you're turning in. And so it can be tempting for students to write the essay in their native language and then use something like Google Translate to turn it into English. That will be like 100% AI detected. It is AI tools that power Google Translate. and all of this stuff I'm talking about. So please do not do that. It's important to know, not only for non-native English speakers, but for anybody. Like if you are, even if you're a native English speaker and you feel like you're worried that your grammar isn't perfect, your writing isn't polished, your writing isn't smooth and beautiful prose, that's okay. I'm not expecting anything like that. I don't necessarily want to see anything like that. I mean, if you really enjoy writing and you have some natural talent, and that's great, I'll enjoy it. But in this class, I'm expecting you to be at more of an introductory level when it comes to your writing. The point of this class is to help you build your analytical skills. I am not here to judge your grammar. If the grammar is affecting the readability of the essay, there's a part of the rubric where I might take a couple points off, but it is nothing that would make it worth it to use an AI tool where you might end up getting a 0 on your essay just because you're worried that you might get a couple points off for something like grammar. And that it takes a lot for it to even get to that point where I would take any points off for it. All right, so please don't feel pressured to turn in this beautifully written, polished essay. I don't really care for it to look like that. It doesn't need to. You can have a perfect score and have a few grammatical errors. Now, I want you to proofread it. I don't want it to be sloppy, but I want you to just do your best, and that's what I'm looking for. It's fine if it's not perfect. This is one I see sometimes, or one that I hear from students, voice-to-text apps. If you are dictating your essay, and I imagine as you're doing that, you're probably looking at the screen and like, hey, they did a good job capturing my words here. Well, yeah, because it's AI powered, all right? So all of these are AI powered. Please do not do that. You got to type your essay. Predictive text tools. Look, when I'm writing a text message to someone and it's predicting my text, I'm really thankful because I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Just send it, go. We can't do that with our essays, all right? So no shortcuts like that. Predictive text tools, the algorithms that power that predictive text are the same. That's the same sort of training for the algorithms for Turnitin. Okay, so whatever you're using to make your life easier like that is what Turnitin is looking for. All right, so here's really the bottom line. If AI is making your writing process easier, you're probably using it wrong, and you're probably gonna have a positive AI report. All right, so on our AI guidelines, I have like green light, yellow light, red light lined up so that you can, or outlined, so that you can get a sense of like, how should I use AI? I think AI can be a wonderful tool to help us in our writing process, but you know what it can help with? It can help with our brainstorming. It can help us be more critical of our own writing. It can help us look for flaws in our own writing and learn tools to help be better writers. But if it's doing the work for us, then we're not becoming better writers like that. I've had students before that tell me how they're using AI in their writing process, and it's amazing, right? They're asking AI to critically look at their draft and point out flaws in their reasoning. They're asking it for grammatical sorts of suggestions on a general level, not specific. They're asking things like, are there ways I can improve the strength of my topic sentences, or the way I transition between paragraphs? Am I getting off track here? Things like that. If you're asking those sorts of questions about your own work, AI is really helping you critically reflect on your writing process. And that's a beautiful thing. I think that AI can be an incredible tool for that purpose. But if you're just using it to offload your work, if you're just using it to like fix the mistakes that you have in there and you're not doing that yourself, then you're using it wrong. It's not helping you become a better writer at that point. So because of all this, and because of many cases of students using AI in an academically dishonest way, I only grade essays that can pass Turnitin's AI detection. All right, so think of it that way. Like, my question is now, has it passed AI detection? If yes, then I grade it. If no, then something else happens, and I'll talk about that now. All right. Or I'll talk about it in just a minute. Sorry, I thought a little bit more to get to first. So how will I know if my essay had a positive AI report? Once the assignment opens, like once students start to turn in their essays, I'll start checking the reports regularly. That might mean every day, that might mean every couple days, especially like in the beginning of the week when it's due. But I'll do my best to regularly check it so that I can leave you a comment. And I'll say on your assignment, I'll say, hey, you're good to go if it's a 0%, or I'll have some follow-up steps if it's not. Okay, so let me first start with the options, like what my comment will look like. If you had 0% or a little asterisk, the asterisk means that it's under 20%, right? At that low level, Turnitin does not like to even give a score because it's so, because it's not confident at all about it. So there's a lot more chance of a false positive. All right, so if it's like that, no problem, you're good to go. I'm gonna say nothing more you gotta do here. I will grade your essay. If it's under 50%, I'll talk about the follow-up on the next slide, but I just want to show you the options. Like it's either 0% or an asterisk, or it's under 50%. That might look something like this. This is a screenshot of an AI report that I got from a student. And so you see here, it's like 30%. And so it's some up here, some over here. Over here, this says that there's 3 sections of AI generated content only, which is likely AI generated text from a large language model, something like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, that sort of thing. Over here, it looks for AI generated text that was AI paraphrased. So it's likely AI generated text that was likely revised using an AI paraphrase tool or word spinner. I don't see this come up very often anymore. It's usually that. But in either case, you'll hear more from me. If it's over 50%, here's an example of what that might look like. And then here's an example of 100%. All right. So what happens if my essay had a positive AI report? Okay, so I want to start off by kind of just calling out the egregious cases. What I mean by egregious cases is like the reckless, obviously academically dishonest, absurd sorts of cases. For example, I have had students copy and paste not just an essay from ChatGPT, but the prompt that they gave ChatGPT, right? So it'll say, can you write me an essay, 2,000 words, make it sound casual? That kind of stuff wastes my time. I don't have time for it. I just fill out a report with the behavioral intervention team, pass it along to the dean's office. I don't have time for that. I just report that. That's egregious cases. I can count on one hand over the past couple of years the number of times that has happened where it's been so blatant. So that is highly unlikely that will happen to you. I mean, you have full control over whether that happens to you. So that's not something that you should be worried about. The people who end up doing that are probably not watching this video. All right, so anything short of that, I like to turn into a teachable moment. Teachable not only for the student, but for myself as well. I've learned a lot through working with students who have positive AI reports. So to be clear, as long as it's not one of those egregious cases, we're going to work together to have you resubmit your essay. And this is my approach. Other instructors may have different approaches, which I totally respect. I understand it. Trust me, it's a lot of work to do it the way that I want to. It's worth it for now, but I'm really trying to find ways to kind of streamline this process because it has been very time consuming and it has really caused me to have a backlog in grading. So the students who don't have any AI report have to wait much longer for their grades because I'm busy dealing with all of these AI reports. So I'm every semester trying to figure out how to do this better. Here's what I have for now, a module. So I used to have individual meetings with all the students that this happened to, but I just couldn't keep up with it anymore. So I developed this module so that students can kind of lead themselves through what normally comes up in the conversations I would have in office hours with students. You lead yourself through it. I want you to do a few things. I'll get into that in a second, but I want to be really clear that if you still have questions or if this isn't enough, I am happy to talk about this in more depth in office hours or by appointment. All right. So what I ask students to do then is to lead themselves through this module. This is for, well, I'll get to that. So first, you have a positive AI report. It's not egregious. That means we're working together to have you resubmit it. And I'm going to ask you to do this module. I'll lead you through this introduction. I will remind you about our AI guidelines. I'll tell you a little bit, short reading from me about authorship. And then I'll ask you to do this reading. It's an article from The Atlantic by Jasmine Sun. I thought it was a really nice, short, easy to read article that talks about AI as not being able to keep up with human writing, right? So Jasmine Sun writes this article. It's called The Human Skill That Eludes AI. And I think that it brings up a lot of really great points that I like to talk about with students. And so I ask students to read that. The third step is to write a reflection. And so when I ask you to write this reflection, I'm asking you to type it into a Turnitin Clarity tool, which automatically is looking for AI as you write. So I'll be able to see like a video of the writing, and it does like a more in-depth search for AI detection there. All right, so that's just kind of my way to get a true writing sample from the students so that I can make sure that we are all on the same page and understand like when writing is AI influenced and when it's not. And then the fourth step here is I'm going to ask you to rewrite and resubmit your essay. So you'll rewrite it and then email it to me and I will resubmit it on your behalf. All right, so what does that mean though? Like how does that rewrite work? If your score was under about 50%, now this will be a little fuzzy boundary there. Like it might not be crisply at 50%, but somewhere around there, I will tell you. If it's under that, like I'll just tell you what areas of the essay I need you to rewrite. This, again, it depends on the essay. Like if it's close to 50%, I might just ask you to rewrite the whole thing. But let's say it's like 30, 40%, there's probably going to be sections like you saw on the previous slide that call out AI use. I'm going to ask you to rewrite those sections. You don't need to rewrite the rest of it. Just do that and we'll test it out. Put it back through the scanner and see what happens. If it's over 50%, or, maybe it's like 49%, but it's kind of scattered everywhere, then I might just ask you to rewrite the whole essay. All right, so at that point, you just got to rewrite the whole thing. Here is something important about that. All right, so when I ask you to rewrite it, here's my best suggestion. And to be clear, because I didn't say this earlier, I hope it's clear by now that I'm only talking to students who are in this situation, or if you're curious about that. If you got 0% or asterisk, like you don't even need to be worrying about any of this, but you might be curious about how I handle these issues. All right, so at this point, you have an essay that's like 70% AI or even 40% AI or something like that, and I'm asking you to rewrite it. Here's my best suggestion. There is this practice in writing called a reverse outline. And what it means is you have a draft already, right? I'm adapting this for AI. If you do a Google search, you'll see that reverse outlines are like a thing that people use in their writing process sometimes. All right, here's how a reverse outline works. You have a draft of an essay, and then you take bullet point notes on that draft. Right? I don't want you, when I'm reading these essays that have AI, it's very clear to me that the student is heavily involved in writing it. I don't think in these cases that it's like that egregious case where you just like ask AI to write the whole thing for you. That's not the case. I can see that students are putting themselves into it. I can see that they are working on it. They're talking about their own experiences, but they're using AI to do the writing for them. And so we want to detach ourselves, unstick ourselves from that language that was used by the AI, right? Just get it back to the main ideas. You don't need to lose all the work and the thought that you put into it. So take that draft, write a bullet point outline for it. I say bullet points because I don't want you using full sentences. That language from the first draft is going to be sticky. If you are looking directly at that first draft when you're rewriting it, it's going to come up with AI again. You got to detach yourself from the language that was used. So write in short bullet point notes just so that you remember the ideas, you remember the structure, the flow of the essay, like what idea you went from, one idea to the next. And then get rid of that first version, keep that outline next to you, and start from scratch then. Rewrite either the sections that I asked you to rewrite or the whole essay itself. Doing that will help speed up the process. You don't have to really start from scratch. You have your outline with you. So you already did all the thinking for it. Just take some time to put it in your own words. All right, so the thing about resubmissions, though, is depending on what time of the semester it is, or whether we're talking about a summer or intersession class, you might be on a tight deadline. So you want to get this process started as soon as possible. All right, because not only do we have deadlines about the end of the class, but also grade submission on my part if we're talking about the end of the term. All right, but if you do have the time, I highly suggest going to the OCC Writing and Humanities Tutoring Center. I've been sending students there a lot recently, and I have heard nothing but positive experiences. Students that were really nervous about writing, they have wonderful experiences. They tell me like great things about the tutors. Students that have all sorts of apprehension about writing. Often I hear like, I don't know how to increase my word count because I feel like it's just fluff. I'm not writing meaningful stuff, but I have to meet this word count, right? The struggles like that, those sorts of things often prompt students to use AI, to depend on AI. But why don't you just go to the writing center and work with a tutor to build those skills yourself? Like that would be a much better use of your time. So I highly recommend that. Sometimes when I'm working individually with students who have like very high AI scores and we're trying to troubleshoot and figure out how to improve it, sometimes I will ask them directly to go to the tutoring center, but mostly I'm just like recommending it more generally. All right, so in summary, here's the takeaways from it. If AI is making your writing process easier, you're probably doing it wrong. Remember that I only grade essays that can pass Turnitin's AI detection. I do that because I want to keep up the integrity of my assignments, of the essays that I have, the grades that I give. And so I want to make sure that the work that I'm grading actually belongs to the student. Also, just to add to that, I'm making the summary a little longer, but you're going to be taking classes with other instructors who might have other ways to be thinking about this. And I want, if you're a student who is using a writing process that does come up AI positive and like you don't know, I don't want you to be surprised in another class where you might get in trouble for something like that. And so I want this to be an opportunity where you can troubleshoot, you can resubmit it, you can try and figure out what it is about your writing process that's allowing AI to seep into it. But again, false positives, like true false positives, I think are very uncommon. It's probably the case that AI is seeping into your writing process and you're just not realizing that it's AI. I wouldn't realize. I think if I was the student right now, I would be very surprised about how, just like spell check and grammar check, things that we have used for years without worrying about this, how those can actually cause a positive AI report. Okay, so ultimately though, if you do have a positive AI report, it's not the end of the world, but you will have more work to do and it'll probably be on a short timeline. All right, so remember, as long as it's not one of those egregious cases, you don't need to worry about it like directly going to the behavioral intervention team, the dean's office. I will work with you to try and get a resolution, right? Try and make sure that you are able to write an essay that does pass the AI detection. And so that'll probably mean troubleshooting and deeper look into your writing process, but that is really done with the goal of helping you be able to write without those sorts of tools, which I think is very important. All right, thanks for listening, everyone. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.